Good. Oh no, but who did it? Good. So it's almost David recorded. Great. So we'll start today. It's great. Welcome everyone, and Rav Natan is also joining. I'm very close to Rav Natan now from the other side of Sweden, as I said, from in Bornholm, where we here in the great meeting of the Folkemødet, the People's Meeting, celebration of the Danish democracy here in Bornholm. And we will study today the Mishnah of in the seventh Mishnah in chapter 3 in Pirkei Avot, and I'll open it immediately. I will share the here. So everyone sees? Great. So the Mishnah goes to a Rabbi Elazar Ish Bar Tota, the discussion where exactly this place is, and I'll say a few words about this person, Rabbi Elazar, but we'll start with the reading. He says, "Give to him of that which is his for you, and that which is yours is his." And thus it says with regards of David, "For everything comes from you, and from your own hand have we given you." Rabbi Yaakov said, if one is studying, I'm sorry, this is now we come to a new saying, the two different saying. Rabbi Yaakov said, if one is studying while walking on the road and interrupts his study and says, "How fine is this tree?" or "How fine is this newly plowed field?" Scripture accounts it to him as if he was mortally guilty. So we have two very different sayings. We might go into why are they connected, and the first one is the quite known one from Rabbi Elazar of Bar Tota. And I want to start with saying a few things about Rabbi Elazar Bar Tota. He's the figure that is not very known in the Mishnah. He's not someone. He comes once in a while. Have a few quotation. They talk of him as one of the first ones to do to memorize Mishnah and I would say teach it in that way. One of the first of Shonei Mishnayot, of those who knew lots of Mishnayot by heart. So he's like part of this creation of time of how Mishnah looks like today, and he like studied it by heart and taught it forward. And he's known mainly for one very, very famous story that comes in Masechet Ta'anit. And I want to share that story. It's from Ta'anit Kaf Daled. Wait, I'm sorry, I need to find it.
In the meanwhile, we can just say that what Rabbi Elazar Ish Bar Tota is saying is connected and not connected to the previous Mishnah. So it's interesting also to see, like you asked, what is the connection between the two parts of the Mishnah, but also how is it connected to the previous Mishnah?
Yes.
But yeah, first, do you have the Ta'anit?
Yes. I found it now. I want to share the story. It's I think one of the hardest stories that is very connected to what he says in the Mishnah. That's why I think it's important to see it. So the story goes like this. It's comes in Masechet Tanit. Masechet Tanit is filled with stories. Tanit means fasting, and Masechet Tanit has a lot of the stories about how terrible it was in Jerusalem under the siege and in Israel. So yes, so the Gemara cites more stories about miracles that occurred to righteous individuals, and one of these righteous individuals talk about is this Rabbi Elazar ben Ish Bartota Birta. Whenever the charity collectors would see Elazar of the village of Birta, they would hide from him. Okay, those who are collecting the money for tzedakah, when they saw this rabbi, they did anything they could to avoid crossing his way. They didn't want him to see them, because why? Because as any money Elazar had with him, he would give them, and they didn't want to take all his property. So basically, he was someone who gave everything he had. He would give. So when he saw these people who come and ask for money, just like it happens to me whenever I ask for money in the community, everyone just pours the money and gives to me. So this is how Rabbi Elazar was. He basically gave everything, and they didn't want him to be so poor and have nothing. So they avoided coming near him, never knocked on his door because they didn't want his family to be poor in him. One day, Rabbi Elazar went to the market to purchase what he needed for his daughter's dowry, the shiduchim, because in Nedunya, dowry, that's a word?
Dowry.
Nedunya. It's like in the Danish Melgift. So the money you need to give with or the thing you need to give to them. So he went to buy the thing for his daughter's wedding to be able to give his daughter away. And then the charity collectors saw him and hid from him. So they crossed his way and they tried to do everything they could to hide from him. He went and ran after them, saying to them, I adjure you, tell me, in what mitzvah are you engaged? They said to him, so he caught them. They tried to avoid seeing him, but he caught them. We're collecting money for the wedding of an orphan boy and an orphan girl. He said to them, I swear by the temple service, Avodah, that they take precedence over my daughter. They take precedence. Am I saying it correctly? Precedence. Sorry, my English. So he comes and says, my daughter, she doesn't come. My daughter has parents. She has a father. She has a mother. So she has more than these two orphaned. So here, he took everything he had with him and gave it to them. All the money he had that was supposed to be the nedunya of his daughter, he gave to the Gabay. And so he was left with one single dinar. That's not a lot. With which he bought himself wheat, and he then ascended to his house and threw it into the granary. Elazar's wife came and said to her daughter, what has your father brought? She said to her mother, whatever he brought, he threw into the granary. She went to open the door of the granary and saw that the granary was full of wheat, so much so that it was coming out through the doorknob, and the door would not open due to the wheat. So a miracle comes in hell for this righteous man. Elazar's daughter went to the study hall and said to her father, come and see what he who loves you, the Almighty, has performed for you. He said to her, I swear by the temple service, as far as you are concerned, of this wheat is consecrated property, and you have a share in it only as one of the poor Jews. Okay, and then he takes this money and gives to everyone. So this money doesn't belong to you. All the benefit, this treasure you get, even though God is trying to knock on his door saying, look, you have to get. He is not willing to take anything. And so I had to bring this story to take it as this is the story we know of him. We don't have any other story about it. This is the only story we know of Rabbi Elazar. And we'll take this one to come into his words of the Mishnah. Rav Natan, you want to? I'll share again the original story and the Mishnah, and then we can continue to talk from there. Here. Yes. So, Rav Natan?
Yes, so the same Rabbi Elazar son of Bartota said, or from Bartota said, give to him of that which is his for you, and that which is yours is his. And thus it says, regards to David, to King David, for everything comes from you, and from your own hand we have given you.
Yeah. So this is his thing. So what do you feel about this, Rav Natan?
I think we can see 2 points here. The first point is the point of view that he has, right? That everything is God's, including myself and including what I own. I don't own anything because it's of God's. So this is a worldview. It's some kind of a way of life. But then he also says, give him from himself. And then the question is, what can you give him? Or what is it that Rabbi Elazar is expecting you to give? And how are you giving God? What is it exactly to give God? Is he talking about sacrificing? What is he talking about? So
it's clear that sacrificing is that the main thing.
What?
It is clear that it's not sacrificing because he lives after the temple's destruction.
Exactly. So what is it? What is it that he asks us to give? But this is, I think, the second question. The first question is really, can we identify, or can we go along with this vision that we own nothing? And I think that your story brings that question very, very strongly, the story that you brought from the tractate of Ta'anit, because many people could see that story not in such a positive way. Would we be happy if we heard that a relative of ours, or a student of ours, or a friend of ours acted this way in his daughter's wedding, or regarding his family, leaving his family with nothing but a coin?
Yeah, and we actually know so many times in the Torah that you're not allowed to ignore your own flesh. And
there's a rule about how much you're allowed to give to tzedakah, so you won't become poor, right?
Yes, and you can also see from the story that I brought that the people around him, they couldn't accept him in giving. It was too much. Mm-hmm. There's an aspect of too much, and that there is definitely part of this story. And even though he comes here in the Pirkei Avot as one of those who shows a way, and shows a way that it reminds me a bit of when you talk about equality. It's very clear that today we have one serious communist country in the world, and that of course is not China. It's in North Korea. Everyone are exactly the same because no one have any. They don't have anything. So if then it's all equal because no one has anything. And in a way, this is maybe a part of the world he creates. I would definitely say that this Rabbi Elazar Ish Bartota will completely disapprove any aspect of the world that we live in today. When we talk about the capitalistic world, about that you should seek your own good and that will make good for others, because if you only make he is definitely the most extreme to the other side. And Kamen says all these things are, I would say, illusion. She'ata, he says, as you said, very directly, She'ata v'shelcha shelo. You and what you have is his. We usually think when we think of the words of the Torah, we think in Shemitah, Kili kol haaretz, like the aspects of we shouldn't be worried about giving because it all comes from God, all the gifts we have. But he started with saying, you and what you have is his. Everything you have, if you are his, then of course everything you have is also his. You don't even need, like, you are not the aspect of individual who you are a servant. I think he lives the idea of being Eved. Maybe this is the part that like Bnei Israel Avadim, that the Israelites are my slaves, servants. Like it's the same word in Hebrew, and it's there. We are owned by someone else, so we are owned by God. So anything we have is also God's, and in many ways, this is also maybe the way we live. This is an illusion. Maybe our illusion is thinking that we own anything, that we have anything.
I when you started talking, I thought that I would try and make a differentiation between the social aspect that you started speaking about and the personal spiritual aspect that I see here. But the more you spoke, the more I saw that it's actually so intertwined. I must say that to me, like, I know it's an extreme thought in a social way, but in a spiritual way, in a way of Avodat Hashem, it seems to me almost one of the most basic areas of working, areas of Avodat Hashem, realizing that really if God is the creator of the world, then really everything is his. And to my children, I find myself speaking about it a lot, because as we all know, children from a certain age, they have a great need to define what is theirs and what is not theirs, and what is my brother's, what is mine, what is like. So I find myself speaking about it a lot with my children, about this idea that when I give something to someone, even if I'm very generous, I get a lot of self-esteem from knowing that I gave, that I had something and now I gave it to another, and this is in the mitzvah of tzedakah. I think this is very present. This idea that I've earned something, and like the idea of maaser, right? I think the simple way of understanding maaser, that we have to give a 10th portion of what we've earned, is we've earned something, but then there are poor people around us, so we need to be generous and give at least a 10th of what we have. Or the idea of tzedakah, that we should be considerate of others. And here Rabbi Elazar Ish Bartota brings it from a I think it's a totally different angle and a much more demanding one, which is it's not that you're giving something of your own, and it's not that you've earned something and therefore it's yours to give on and to be compassionate. It's that what I've earned is not mine. There's no such thing as earning. There's no such thing as something that belongs to me. I'm using things that I got from God because he believes that I need it, but it doesn't turn it into being mine. And therefore, it's not that I'm generous by giving it forward, but whatever I don't need, I need to pass on. And just thinking about this concept.
And also the things I need, I also need to pass on.
Yeah, but I think there's something here also that I don't know if it goes along exactly with the communist aspect that you said, but again, but I think it's inherent here that when I get something, the same view tells me that when I receive something, I should receive it as a present, and it becomes more special. You know, when I see the money that I gained in the end of the month because I've worked. So the idea is that I've worked and now my work is worth something. And this is one aspect of having things. Now I've used the money that I've earned to buy, I don't know, something nice for my children, or to buy a new shirt. I don't know what. But thinking about it in a different way, that whatever I've got is also a present, right? That's what he says, that you and yours comes from him, right? So also every coin that I get, or everything that I get, is not because I've worked hard for it. It's because God decided to give me a present. It's his.
But he doesn't stop there, because that doesn't say that God gave us a present. He says it's from his hand we are giving back to you. And what he underlines is you have to give.
So here we're getting to the second part, which I asked you. What does it mean to give?
This is not the second part. This is the first part. He starts by not by getting. He starts with the giving. He starts with saying, "Give."
So what do you think he means when he says give? What should I give? What is it should I give? Is he talking about tzedakah?
I would, because I read it in light of the story. I would say yes, but I would also say I think when he comes and says, give him from what is his Mishelo, he underlines that there's not 1 second that becomes yours. So the aspect of, for example, they said you got a gift from God. He doesn't even start there. It never became his. There was not 1 second that he thought that the thing. I would say that if I go back to the communist aspect, Rabbi Elazar, I am sure, would love the idea of the ideology of kibbutz, like the ideology of give as much as you can and take what you need. Like it's not that he starved to death, but for him, maybe like the story, everyone are poor. No one should have anything. You only need what you need to eat, and the minimum. Everything else, give, help others. Now, I think the beautiful thing is that he doesn't speak about, it's not socialism or communism, because he talks about the individual. He doesn't talk about society. He talks about what you can do. This is the way you are supposed to live. You are supposed to give from what is not yours. You're supposed to give from what is his. And I think Rabbi Elazar would love that as many people as possible would have done that. He preaches for us to live in that sense. It's an ideology that is, I think he's probably aware that it is impossible to live like that. He knows that, so he would give the other, he would, just like in the story I brought, he would prefer the daughter, the orphaned daughter. She will get more than his daughter. Right? So it's not problem. There's no problem. Someone will get more because this is what they need in society. But me and my family, we won't. We will be in a different place.
Yeah, so I don't think we need to really make it an argument, because we more or less agree. But I think that I'm putting the emphasis maybe a little bit on a different place. I think it's the fact that he's not, like, the socialist view is talking about wealth distribution, about how I need to get my portion. Everybody has to get an equal portion. Here, as you said, it's more than that, in the sense that it's all part of God's, well, in the word present, I agree that there is a sense of also now the present belongs to me. I didn't mean in that sense, but I meant in the sense that it's God's, and therefore every kind of any kind of exchange that I have is something that God gives. Now, maybe it's not, he doesn't give it for me to keep. Some of the things he does give me to keep, because that's part of, what I'm using. That I think we chose the word use to define it, right? God gives me things so I can use, but it doesn't become mine, right? And therefore, I think that I put the emphasis more on the spiritual view, that if I have something in my hand, it's not mine. So how did it get here? It got here by God's present to me. And in the same way, it's not mine to keep, and it's not mine to feel that I've earned it. And the whole world is like that. So it's not socialist as much as it's just look around and see God, right? It's that, like, my house needs to be open because it's not my house. It's there because God created it, and I'm here because God created me, and I am his. So I don't know if it's a big difference, but I feel like there's something here that really it can create a whole worldview that maybe it doesn't have to be all that extreme in the sense of how am I acting in the world, but it could be a very strong pillar of how I see the world.
I can see that Michelle wrote a beautiful comment here. Does you want to add that Michelle, wanted that maybe not all gifts are materialistic either, like not measurable. You can give compassion, prayers, sharing, and I would say this is exactly what he would agree completely. He's like, there's nothing that we own. We are basically not like like everything we get is definitely not only materialistic. It's a way of walking in the world, and I think in that sense, Natan, as you said, it's a way of seeing the whole world. This may be how it's connecting to the next to the next part, which is also part of like the walking in the world, and how do you observe the world, and why, and so
well, if you can, if it's fine, just right before that, I would like to tell a nice story, because this idea of ten lo mishelo, give him of that which is his. This is touching upon a very, very basic question, I think, in the Jewish view of our relationship with God. It comes also part of this question of what should I pray about? How can I say a bracha, right? Blessing God. Can I bless God? What do I have to bless God if he's the person if he's who is blessing. He is who is blessing, right? And in that sense, what does it mean? Give him from what it is. If everything is his, then what can you give? And how does it make sense to give from what it is? So don't tell anything about giving, right? Just say that everything is his. Like, what does it mean if I have something to give? Then in human eyes, it's mine to give. So he, on purpose, he makes it paradoxical, like give him from what it is. So I think the simple way is really to see it about tzedakah or about other kinds of giving, and making a point that when you are giving, you're imagining that you're giving from yourself, but really I want to tell you that you're giving him from his. But I wanted to say, to tell a short story about giving. And the story is that one time, the Baal Shem Tov rode in his carriage with a few students. And on the way, they saw a young boy, a shepherd. And the shepherd was dancing in a crazy way. And they stopped and looked at him, and they hear him saying, God, what can I give you? God, what can I give you? I can't give you anything. I have nothing. What can I want to give you something. I will dance for you. And he's dancing and dancing and dancing until he falls completely finished. And he lies on the ground, and then he says again, but God, I gave you my dancing, but I want to give you more. I want to give you more. And then the story goes on that he jumps for God and he claps for God, and like he and all what he does with all the powers that he has, and every time he falls on the grass again, and then he jumps up because he wants to give God another thing. And this idea that, like, one thing is really, we should know that we're giving whatever we need to give, we should give from God. But the other thing is to think about the concept that we are supposed to give to God. It could be by giving tzedakah to another person, which is actually giving God from what is his, but still I'm giving to God. But it could be also other kinds of giving. God looks for us to give him something. And many times, right, we read in the Midrashim that God creates trouble in the world, so the people of Israel will turn to him. And there's a midrash about how this is a parallel to a father who carries his son, and he wants to hear the son call him. So he puts him through different challenges, so the son will call him. This idea that you can give to God, it's radical. Only this idea that you can give to God. And so from one radical idea, which is saying when you're giving tzedakah or when you're doing something good, it's not yours, it's God's, and you should give as knowing that it's not yours. We're getting to another radical view, which is God wants you to give him. And it's possible to give God even though we have nothing, and everything that we have is from God.
It's a beautiful, and I think that you're very right that the word give is the essence here. And then not only that his aspect, that is one aspect, but the word give is like, this is our role. So this is the thing that we need to seek. The concept of give. We need to thanksgiving, right? The American wonderful idea. So it's and by the way, if I can continue the socialistic aspect, which I also connected to the economical questions, I would argue that one of the biggest challenges that I find in the Scandinavian social democratic system, which I really think it's great for humankind, is that people lose the idea of giving, because the country takes care of so many things. then we are, as individuals, we're not responsible of giving. And it's very clear that Rabbi Elazar Isbatotai wants us to be in this position, not giving through our taxes, but being in a worldview of giving. And that is actually the one thing that I really lack in our system here, because the country takes care of the poor, of the elderly, of the children. So all of the are supposed to, and that means that that less responsibility on individuals, on people, on the society, and that is, and many times we pay a price for that, because then we lose the option to be in a giving position, in seeking that giving. I still prefer living in Scandinavia than living in any other kind of place anytime, but it's important to remember which parts we are paying, where we are paying a price, and I think this is one of these places. But I want to continue, because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to continue to the end of the Mishnah, because it's so beautiful, really so interesting and weird, comparing to our, especially when we talk of Rav Natan, we talked about how to view the world and view what's surrounding us. And here comes Rabbi Shimon, and not Rabbi Yaakov, but it's Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. And it says that if one is studying while walking, המהלך בדרך ושונה, הוא מפסיק ממשנתו. And he interrupts his study and says, how fine is this tree, or how fine is this newly plowed field? מנאה אילן זה ומנאה ניר זה. מעלה עליו כתוב כאילו מתחייב בנפשו. The scripture accounts it to him as if he was mortally guilty, which is, I always found this very hard idea. How can it be so problematic to look on the world, to get inspired, to talk about how beautiful God's world is? This tree, we're blessing the Creator, and so what? How can this be so wrong? We're supposed we go walking out in the field, our heads in the books. I do that sometimes. You can see me if you go when I walk to the community. I go walking with my head in the book. Usually I don't stuck in anything. I don't get stuck. But why is it so wrong then to just leave the book for a second and look at how beautiful God's world is? Rav Natan, help me here.
What do people here think?
Yeah, well, what do you say? Give me. I heard one advice, but I heard a story of Rav Kook about this. That is, I think he. But before I say Rav Kook, I want to hear you guys. Help me here. How come the Mishnah might say, or Rabbi Shimon comes and says, that I need to focus on studying and not looking on God's beautiful world? Help me here. It's for me, it's so counterintuitive. It's so against everything I understand of how to look at the world. No one has this is too radical. You managed with giving anything you have and everything is from God, but this is too radical. Yes, Silke, you have a. No, I thought you turned on the video because you have a suggestion. No, good.
Yeah, so Rav Yair, you say Rav Kook, and I'll say another Hasidic saying that.
Okay, so I'll start with Rav Kook. Rav Kook. And Rav Kook was very famous by liking seeing nature and inspiring and such. So it's and he said that the main problem, there's only one problem in this sentence. This is not saying how beautiful this tree is and how fine is this field. He says there's a problem is that he interrupts his studies and says, "Umafsik mishnato." He says, Rav Kook, the story was that he walked together with with his students. They asked him, "But how come you can stop from your studies and go walk around? Because there's this Mishnah." And the student asked him, how can you do that? You're supposed to study all the time. Hagita bo yomam v'layla. You have supposed to study the whole time. How come you can stop and go around for trips? And then he says, No. I don't stop. I'm continuing to study. If looking on the nature is the problem, mafsik mishnato, interrupts his study and said, no, this has to be part of your studies. If you study Torah and then you stop Torah and look on nature, you make a separation. So this is what you're not allowed to. You say it's supposed to be part of your studies, and in that sense, if you separate these things, then yes, you risk your life, because you took God out of nature, you took God out of this beautiful, you took the Torah out of this. No, walking out in the field should be part of studying Torah. Then this is the right way to handle it. Cecilia, you raised your hand.
Yes.
By mistake or?
I'm thinking of, if you're not giving and you're not learned how to give, then you keep it. And then you will be more egoistic in a way. And then you could be more I don't know. You should just have one God. That's the first command. Yeah. So if you're not giving away the things you have, have more not love for God, to be the one.
Is it regarding the first part of the Mishnah?
What is idol? You have idolatry. I don't know the English word for it.
Yeah. Idols. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to give. So you give away from yourself the kindness in anything. So you are not bind to the materialistic world and to feelings.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes, I think I agree, Cecilia. I think it's beautiful what you said. It's very connected to especially the first part of the Mishnah of Rabbi Elazar way of thinking, but it's also connected to the other one with how do you look on idol in this connection? How do you see God in the connections to you? Rav Natan, but you had a Hasidic story to.
So actually, I read with the rabbi of Pshischa exactly what you said from Rav Kook, and I think that the Pshischa was a bit before Rav Kook, so
probably
maybe we found a source here to Rav Kook saying, but I think it's on first glance it seems a bit apologetic and maybe a bit cute, like. We
have a sentence we don't manage with, so we find somewhere a different way to interpret it.
Exactly, like the simple way is to say our sages are against looking at nature and they want us to sit and learn all day, and for us it's very hard, so we found like a nice thing to say, saying that the question is, do we see the tree as stopping from learning, or is it part of the Torah learning to stop and look at the tree and see, as you said, is it a separation or not? But my feeling, I learned this a few times, and I thought about it a lot because I too love nature, and I think the words of Rav Kook and before him Rab Simcha Bunim of Pshischa, it's pointing on a delicate issue, which is, I think, very true. And the question is, of course, everything comes from God, of course. And of course, when I see a tree, it could be the most positive thing in the world, and to to be filled of amazement from the creation that God created. But this is a question of truth to ourselves, which is a very serious question. Do I use God as an excuse? In other words, I'm stopping from my learning to see a tree. Is that really part of my learning? Or would I just say that it's part of my learning in order to appreciate the tree? Do I really experience the world as part of the Torah? Really? And it's a question that nobody could answer except me. And we're getting to these heights now. The whole chapter, we started from the first Mishnah of chapter 3. It was about learning Torah and about incorporating Torah inside our life. We talked about learning Torah while eating, and we talked about learning Torah in different numbers of people, in 10 and in 5 and in 1 and 2. Now it comes to more and more to a peak. Like, is really the world my Torah learning? Am I really separating? And if I'm not if I am separating, if I'm learning Torah, if I'm memorizing a piece of Torah, and then I'm looking at a tree, even if I'm really amazed by the tree, but I don't incorporate it into the Torah learning, then I'm creating a break in reality. It's a serious thing. That's why also the word is you are mortally guilty. Mitchayev benafsho. It's like that's what divides us from a person who is not God worshiping or does not realize who God is. That will be the division. The division won't be if I keep Shabbat or not. That's nice, but the division would be this kind of sincerity. Can I see the world through godly eyes? And it's a question that all of us should ask ourselves. And if not, then we should continue the Mishnato, studying while walking. We should continue the studying in order to be able to look at the tree and say, that's exactly part of it. It's exactly the same. God is clear to me through the tree as it is through the book.
I saw Daniel, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I'm thinking if the point of Natan is in that case, maybe the rabbi would not say that it would be he would be mortally guilty if he said, how fine has God made this fruit, for example, or how fine has God made this tree. Then he would be he would not be mortally guilty. Is that what you mean, Rav Natan?
We both said more or less the same thing, Avir and I, but I think that to me, it again would be a question of sincerity. Like, I can say how nice is the tree that God made and still concentrate mostly about the tree. And I can say nothing about God and still that it would be part of my Avodat Hashem, of my God worshiping, of my learning.
You might say of Natan that both of them are not sincere. If you study, but you're so easily distracted that you start looking at the trees, that's a problem in your sincerity in Torah. If you look if you look at them and don't see God, and don't say, as Daniel said, we're supposed to say a bracha. When we see a beautiful sight, we're supposed to say a bracha. There are different options of a brachot, and maybe then you're not sincere and you're seeing the world. So maybe we need both of them to be fully, completely, not to be easily distracted, but also see the world as we're supposed to see it. Not only observe it as an excuse not to study. So it's maybe that is an example, like being full with these things that may be connected to also the first part of Rabbi Elazar of being completely full, like understanding as being part of God's world completely, like being dedicated completely. They're giving, maybe yes, in a Hasidic way. They showed that way more than I think any other group at least since Talmud and Mishnah time, of being completely devoted and dedicated to God. I think this is for me something I can't even really understand. I can speak about it, but I can't feel it completely. Maybe this is a devotion that we need to be inspired by.
L'chaim.
Thank you for this, you, yes. And go out, look on how beautiful the nature is. I'm going out, just outside of my window is the beautiful sea of Bonhomme. I think I'll go to the water and see and be able to levarech God for this beautiful creation.
What happens if I see the tree and then I say, oh, I remember the Mishnah that says that if I stop and see, I'm continuing the learning by remembering the Mishnah.
Then I think I have a double guilt.
Bye.
All the best.
Shavua tov.
Yeah, have a good summer.
תודה, שבוע טוב.
Shavua tov.
שבוע טוב.